Hi all, this is Jenny with Honest Scraps, and today we are going to create a design in either StitchArtist 2 or StitchArtist 3 that mimics a Suncatcher. I've done this a long time ago with quite a different program, and I'll tell you, the Embrilliant suite just absolutely makes it simple, easy peasy. You are only going to be using a couple of tools. The first one is the draw that I am highlighting now, and I can never remember the names of these, so I'm sorry. And you can also count on using the lace, freestanding lace feature of this particular program. The graphic that you see on your screen is one that I found. It was free online. I checked out their terms of use, and as far as I can tell, it's for craft purposes. This is a craft, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to digitize this. It was a fairly simple, straightforward design, which is why I chose it. There's a ton of stained glass windows patterns out there. Just Google free stained glass patterns. You'll get anything from the most complicated to a few that are quite simple like this one. Not too many, unfortunately. But that said, let's go ahead and begin. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a rectangle, and we're going to fill it with a freestanding lace. To do that, I go to my Embrilliance Outlines, go to Shapes 1, and select the square and click OK. Now I'm going to take my black handles that you see, and I'm going to drag it to be the size of the rectangle, the outer rectangle. Alrighty, almost there. It doesn't take long to do it like this. And once I get it, that's perfect. Once I have that rectangle there, that's an outline, so now I can fill it. At this point, I am not going to worry about anything other than the fill stitches. That said, I'm going to come up here to my stitch toggles, select freestanding lace, make sure that it is the freestanding over in my bar, freestanding double. The density is 2.0, the stitch length is 2.5, and it's in a diamond pattern. Now you want this to be double, because what happens as it stitches over itself, excuse me, as it stitches over itself, the stitches actually lock, and that's what allows you to use a wash away stabilizer and have the lace actually hold together once it's completed, or once the stabilizer is washed away. The stitches between the bobbin thread and the upper thread, they'll wrap around each other. So now I have my background. The only thing I'm going to do is adjust the color, and I'm going to go and pick a light color. Now it will go away, it's fine. I'm not going to move the stitch orientation or anything. We're going to be working with that in just a few minutes. The next part of this design that I'm going to digitize, and I'm going to zoom in so you can watch what I do, are the leaves. Now, I've read the manual, and I can tell you that there are keystrokes that will allow you to automatically insert a cusp, automatically insert a rounded area, and automatically insert a line. What's in the manual doesn't work with my MacBook. I'm just going to tell you that. So I'm going to tell you what I'm attempting to insert. All right. I'm going to select my draw, and the background seems to disappear. And I'm going to come to the bottom, and I am going to insert my first point right here. I'm not going to worry about the separation of the leaves. I'm just going to outline the grouping of the leaves. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to insert nodes that curve around and follow the outline of the leaves. Now I'll curve up to the point, and at the point I want to insert a cusp. Cusp allows me to have a different, allows me to go off in a different direction and maintain my curve. So that's going to be my cusp. And now I am going to go back to inserting curved lines. You can see how that just kind of follows the outline. Again, I get to the point and I'm going to insert a cusp, and I'm going to go back up this way. Looks like it's wrong, but hang on. Remember, it takes 3 points to form a curve. To cusp, curve, 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 all the way to the bottom. And I go very close. Now I'm going to come up to my close the area, and I have an outline. I'm going to add my freestanding lace fill, and this time I am going to change to toggle off the diamond and have it be this square. I'm also going to change the color to a green. It is leaves after all. Alrighty, now I'm going to pan up to my cute little tulip. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Select my draw. I'm going to begin at the bottom, and I'm going to do curves around, to a cusp, and I want that cusp to be on this line. It's not quite on the outline of the flower, but that's okay. Again, to a cusp in this corner, curve, curve, cusp, curve, curve, cusp, curve, curve, cusp on the line again, curve, curve all the way around, and to the bottom, and close my area. Again, I'm going to fill it with my freestanding lace, and because I had the diamond pattern used in the last time, it will automatically replicate that. But I'm going to change my color to a pink or a red. I haven't just, we'll go with the cardinal red, and say okay. And now we're going to zoom out and we're going to see what we have. Looks pretty good for now. And now the fun part, because now is the part where we start talking about pathing. Hey all, this is Janie. I'm back again, and we're going to continue digitizing what would be the leaded lines of our stained glass windows. For this, we're going to actually utilize a black satin fill or satin column, and we're going to be using what we call pathing. Now, years ago, I didn't know that's what it was called. It was just a way of creating a design that would stitch efficiently. The definition of an efficient stitching design is the proper amount of density, the infrequency of jumps and thread clips, and just how quickly you can get through stitching a color, not necessarily quickly, but without the machine stopping and starting. And that's what pathing allows you to do, is just to create a straight line for your machine to stitch down. To do that, we are going to have to think a little bit through our design. In other words, you look at what crosses over what comes in first, what goes out first, which way you want to go. Sometimes it's trial and error, I'll be honest. Sometimes a design will have a very obvious path that it follows, and sometimes you don't know the path until after you get in there and actually start creating the outlines. That was kind of how this was. The first thing I'm going to give you an outline for, or to digitize an outline, is for this back, the center part of my tulip, this part that you see me circling on right now. I'm going to zoom into that so you can see it a little better. It's this part right here. Okay. To do that, I am going to select my draw feature, and this is a little wonky, but because my satin stitch is wide, it will probably cover it. I'm going to start applying my line at the cusp. I'm going to follow around, and I'm going to just simply follow my red lines as best I can. I'm not going any further than that. Okay, you can see my green dot or my start and my red dot and my end. Off of that line, I'm going to right click to set it, and then I'm going to go to my satin column or satin border, and I'm going to apply it. I want to show you one thing. This is a personal preference, okay? I'm going to come over here and I want to make sure my width is like 2.4 to 2.5. I think on the one I created originally, it's a little bit smaller and I wasn't quite happy with it. But what I want to show you is the line in Nib Styles, and I want you to consider using number 5. Now what that does is it gives you a thickness in the center, and it actually gives some movement to the design itself. And it covers it pretty well. So that looks good to me. The next part that I'm going to digitize is going to be a running line or a running stitch from here to this particular cusp. Well, now why am I going to do that? Because I want my needle to travel this way, and then I want my satin fill or my satin column to create one continuous column along this aspect of my tulip. Right there. See where my arrow is? So for that, I'm going to come to the top to my draw. I'm going to again start at my cusp, follow the outline, and there's no red line here. Remember, it's all one, down, right click off, and that's going to become a walking stitch or a running stitch. It's right here over in my objects panel. While I'm here, I want to point out, you always, before you want to create a part, you always want to make sure that the last thing you put in is highlighted, because then your next object in the design will follow that. So I'm going to click off, and I have a run line. Now I can actually, there's two ways of doing this, and not to confuse you, but I could cut and paste and we won't get into that. I am now going to add another line with my drawing tool, and I'm going to begin at that cusp, follow the line that I just drew all the way up to the top, and I'm going to end at the intersection of the point. You can see there's a straight line that comes across here. I'm going to end right there. Right click off that design. This is going to be a satin border, okay? So I'm going to click on my satin border. Got a little wonky there. We can straighten that, or I can delete that and just make it a nice smooth curve. Smoother curve. That's what I want. All right. Now the next part I'm going to digitize is this outer aspect ending at the bottom. There's a reason. I want some movement in it. So I'm going to again come up here and draw, start approximately where I ended, follow the red, almost invisible line around my tulip to the bottom, and end it right there. Right click off, satin border, and oops, it turned white. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, if I look over in my object menu, I must have accidentally selected the lace background, so my satin border came in at the same color, and it's also in the wrong place. I want to bring it down to its correct order after this satin border, the first one, or second part that I've digitized. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to select color, one color, black. Say OK. All right. Now remember what I said. That was the last bit I had put in. So I'm going to make sure it's selected. I'm going to go to my draw function, and I'm going to start inputting nodes for the last petal of my tulip, following the red line. And again, I'm going to end right there. at the intersection of straight line and curved flower petal. Right click, Satin Border, and again I probably have too many nodes, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete a few of them. Just that will always give a much smoother line to my curves. Fewer nodes, smoother the line. There, that looks good. Now I'm going to end my tulip. To do that, I'm going to bring it on the inner aspect around to here. So making sure that I am on my satin border, I'm going to come here, start about where I finished, follow again the red line. Let's try inputting a few less curves this time, and end it. Right click off, oops, I didn't right click off. Right click off, and look how pretty and curved that is. I'm pretty happy with that, and it looks like it's in the correct place in my column. Now we're going to scroll down. The reason I wanted it to end there is because I am going to actually place my stem. To do the stem, I'm going to click again on draw, bring it right to there, and bring it right down into my leaf. I'm going to right click off, right click off, and select Satin Border. I am going to make this just a little narrower for various reasons. And I'm also going to pull it up just a little bit because I want it just caught in that leaf. Okay. Finally, I am starting my leaves. And I hope this is making sense. It really does stitch beautifully in the end. I'm making sure that the last input I had, and I probably should have checked, I didn't in the beginning, on what my underlay is. I have an edge run, I have parallel, inset, and I have zigzag. Usually don't use edge run just because sometimes it misses it, but I'll go ahead and leave it on this time. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, I need to get from this point, because the first leaf I'm going to do is, or the first part of the leaf is this upper edge. So I need to walk my machine, put a running stitch from this point right here to this point, not very far. So I'm going to take it, select, put in a point, and bring it down, and right click, and that's a walking stitch. Okay, now I'm going to take again and digitize around here. The leaves are going to be done in the exact same way as the petals of the tulip. So let's get going. Oops. Alrighty, so now we have our tulip done. And now I'm going to go ahead and we will in just a moment begin our pathing, of the frame. Alrighty. It's now time to actually begin creating the frame for our little sun catcher, and that would be the horizontal and parallel lines that you see. I'm going to be showing you a quick trick in just a few minutes if you don't want to have to constantly be sure your drawn lines are superimposed one upon the other. If you remember correctly from the last video, we ended about here with the bottom of our tulip. So what we need to do, we need to path a line that's going to travel this direction so that we can then zigzag that direction. To do that, I select my draw toggle and I will just about there, and I'm going to draw a straight line out to the edge. That seems okay. Right click off and then select run stitch. Now I'm probably, where's my hand? Going to move that down just a bit. Yeah, because I want the center. Alright, so now if you look over here, I have a straight running stitch in my objects. Now I'm going to once again create a straight line from this edge to this edge. Right click off, and I think, again, I move down just a little bit. Now I'm going to select my satin border and it's going to be applied. I don't want the end points this time, so on my line thickness I'm going to go to just the straight line. My width is 2.0. I'm going to go up just, let's say, to 2.4. I want that just a little bit thicker. Now I'm at the end of my design, or my square. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to bring a walking stitch or running stitch up to this horizontal line. So I'm going to select my draw feature. Again, just a straight line up. Right click off, running stitch. And bring it down just a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to walk in and zigzag out. And this, I'm going to show you this quick trick. Some of you probably know it. Select my, create my line, I'm going to create the line up to the cusp on my tulip. Right click off. And I'm going to zoom into that just to make sure, because visually I want it to go straight across. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to put a running stitch in. Now, I'm going to copy that. Here's my running stitch. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it. Control C, Command. Now here's the trick. If you go up to your Create menu, Outline, go over to the third category down, select reverse points. Now all you have to do, now if you see on that run line, here's the original run line, it starts and ends. Here's the copied and pasted, it starts and it ends. All I have to do is put in my straight stitching. That looks pretty thick. Let me see what it is. Oh, that's right. We might go back and change that satin border, those to 2. In fact, I think I'm going to because I think I like it better. It just kind of goes, there we go. Yeah, that looks a lot better. All right, so I didn't have to draw anything that time. We'll do it again at the next stop. I'm going to walk around the whole way to here and do the same thing. All right, so I'm going to take and I'm going to draw, and I'm going to draw a straight line all the way around to here. And I'm stopping at that point. Right click off, and you'll see why in just a second. Walking stitch. Now I'm going to zoom in and make sure we're centered. Not quite. Okay. Now I'm going to add another walking stitch from that's right. From that point to the cusp. Click off. Again, walking stitch. I hope you're not getting my Facebook notifications that keep popping up. Now I'm going to copy that, my last run, copy and paste with that last run selected. I'm going to create outline, reverse points, and add my satin fill. See how quick? I love this software. All right, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to walk up the corner to here, go all the way down. And let's make sure I'm centered. There we go. So I'm going to go to my draw toggle, just lines all the way up to here. Right click, walking stitch, again, here's my run, and now I'm going to draw straight to the bottom. Right click, and that looks like it's probably not on again. I'm having a hard time today. Might be fine. And put in my satin stitches. And that looks pretty good to me, just above that line. And now we're going to take and we're going to walk over to this one. And put a running stitch. And oops, didn't do that. Didn't do that. There we go. That's a little better. And now we're going to digitize satin line all the way to the top. Satin line, just simple straight line. Right click off and satin border. And the one part I want to double check on, because it's really simple to move these lines, is that the ends of my tulips are caught, and they seem to be, I think, good there. So now the next, actually we've got 2 steps left. One is to add a hanger, and then the last step is simply to create a frame. Okay, so the hanger, I'm going to, looks like this is probably centered. I'm going to do another walking stitch from here to here. Right click off. I call it walking, I mean running. And now I'm going to bring in from the Brilliance Outlines library down in shapes, I'm going to bring in the circle. Say OK. Obviously this circle is too big, so I'm going to size it way down. Let me see. I'm going to go to create. It's 1/4 of an inch. Boy, that was lucky. And I'm going to bring it up to the top. So I want it to be about 1/4 of an inch. Go back to my Create Design, and I am going to add my satin outline. And I'm going to bring the start to the bottom and the stop to the bottom. You'll see why in just a second. Now, last thing is to put in my frame. I'm not going to draw any more lines. I'm going to select my lace, copy it, and paste it down at the very bottom. And I'm going to, in my stitch tools, the open element reverts it back to a line. Now, because it is now a line, I am simply going to select my satin. I am going to bump up my outline just a little to make sure it gets everything. And I'm going to move my, remember, let's move back for a second. On our little hanger, it started and stopped at the bottom, so I'm going to start this there. And I'm going to stop it at the same point. The only thing I have left to do is to make that black. And we've created a sun catcher that can be stitched on any kind of water-soluble stabilizer. Don't forget to save your hard work, and I think you've done a great job. Until next time, I hope you've learned several new tricks with this software, and I know you're loving it just as much as I am. Talk to you later.